Hello, everyone in Empowered Soul Network land. Another amazing interview coming to you today, live from Des Moines, Iowa. And actually, my guest is here in Des Moines, Iowa, too. I love connecting with my fellow Iowans. Christine Krause is here with us today. She is a registered nurse, a licensed acupuncturist, an energy worker all around. Let's help people heal person. Christine, welcome to Empowered Soul Network.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for inviting me and letting me share my story and share some of the stuff that I've learned over the years of working as a nurse and then acupuncture and integrating energy work with all of the things that I've got interested in. So over the years.
Let's dive right into it. Take us back there when because you're engaged in the whole healing arts energy from the register. What led you into were you always like that as a kid, wanting to help people? How did that all work?
Well, I was born and raised here in Iowa, and I grew up in north central Iowa on a farm. And so on a farm, you just learn that you have to help, because there's always something to do. And then I ended up getting a job as a waitress in the cafe in town and at the bowling alley in town. So I was always doing something to help people. So, and then that naturally led to, when I chose, after I graduated from high school and I chose what I was going to do for college, I decided to go for nursing. And mostly because I wanted to be able to help people. I did have a strong interest in, I began to get interested in astrology and, other things besides the typical religious background. And I was interested in science in high school. It was a really good, strong topic for me. And so I wanted to figure out how I could use science and helping people, and nursing seemed to be an obvious choice. So that's what I chose. And when I went into the program initially, I thought it was going to be about, learn how to take care of people and then learn how to teach them how to take care of themselves. And that really wasn't how that happened. I did find out that Western medicine, it's great for a lot of things, but as I was getting further into my nursing career and dealing with my own things with my health, I found that there was just a lot of things that Western medicine wasn't addressing. And so I began to kind of search and figure out, well, what's going to help me with this issue, or what's going to help this patient with that issue, and how could I help them to understand what was going on with them and how they could help take care of themselves. And so that eventually led me to study just a bunch of different things as far as like nutrition. I worked in weight loss centers to learn about nutrition. And then I was always interested in astrology, and I learned about tarot cards. And then as I got older, I started learning about energy work, Reiki, and different kinds of energy work certifications and things. So, but yeah. And then as I married and had children and ended up with other health issues, that led me to other directions that opened me up to an entirely new world. With my midwife actually, and with an acupuncturist. So they helped me get through a pregnancy.
So it's a real train trip down the track there.
It was. It didn't seem like it was going that fast. But when I look back on it now, I realized that a lot of the reason I was doing what I was doing and what I was looking for was to help people learn how to be healthier. And to have, a life that they wanted to have, even despite the fact that they would have a diagnosis that was pretty significant, like diabetes or hypertension or heart disease, that they could still have a quality of life, and that they could still participate in having that quality of life through the knowledge of how to take care of themselves. So
yeah. So when you were growing up, because I hear this from a lot of people that are people, they have that heart for people, that love for people, they care. Sometimes the kids are challenged by that. They can feel, like people don't accept them, or they're just a different way of thinking. It's not from the logic, it's from the heart. What were some of the challenges that you had as a growing up, being that truly concerned for a gal from the farm, all that?
yeah.
What did you go through?
Well, I did feel like I was not Yeah, I didn't feel like I was included a lot. I felt like I was
Okay.
an outsider. I just had a different way of thinking. And I tended to be more sensitive than my other classmates. And, I can recall listening to some music in a choir class one time in grade school, and I just started crying because it was so beautiful. And, everybody thought that I was just, what's the matter with her? And so it was just an interesting, when I look back, I do realize that yes, I was a lot different than my classmates. And a lot of the stuff that happened, I didn't understand where, how people were treating other people. It was like, well, where's the kindness? Where's the softness? Where's the inclusion? So, and that's something I did notice as I was growing up. And so, because I wasn't making connections, because I was just different, so to speak, I enjoyed reading a lot, and I enjoyed a lot of, I was very creative. So I found myself sitting in a classroom and staring out a window, and I was off in my own little world. And I was, having conversations or imagining things or viewing other things in my mind. So that made it a little difficult going through school because I wasn't catching a lot of the things because I would get easily bored. And there's just so much more going on in this other realm in my world. So,
Have you seen this similar kind of thing in your own children? Do they have kind of similar kind of bents and qualities?
They do. All of my children, well, they all have learning disabilities, quote, learning disabilities.
Mhm.
So, but they're very brilliant and they're very successful. And yeah, they all have their own little quirks and personalities and curiosities. So my daughter in particular, and I don't know if it's more because, girls talk more about these things or ask more questions, but she would, let me know that she could see things in her room and she could hear things come and try to talk to her. And she could see people's colors around the body. She didn't know what that was. So she would tell me the teacher had this color on top and that color on the bottom. And yeah. And I have another one of my children say something like that too, that he could see colors around people. And he didn't really like it because he didn't know what it was about. And I wasn't really into all of that far at that time. So I couldn't really, I found it interesting. And that's probably another reason why I went in the direction I went, is to study more about the energy fields around people and, the auras and all of that, and how the body works on an energetic level, which is what led me to acupuncture, because truly that is what acupuncture is. It's working with the energy body, so all the energy meridians in the body.
I'm glad you shared about that because I know I grew up like that, being sensitive like that, and also my kids were just like what you described, being able to intuitively sense things, clairvoyantly, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Well, and a lot of it, I think, was because they just had that basic deep love inside that kind of was, two rails of the train track going down there.
Yeah.
So having grown up as that sensitive, caring person and seeing the parallels of your kids, looking back on all that and looking at it right now, do you have any suggestions to parents that have that see that in their kids as well, on how to help nurture that, or at the same time having to live in the society and the school system and all that? How would you suggest one or two ways that you found has been helpful for that?
Well, it's really important that you support what your kids tell you, that you accept it and that you support them. And yes, this is what you saw, and this is, and then educate them on what that is. And, because a lot of times they're scared of what they're seeing, or they're scared of what they're hearing because they don't understand. And if they're not in a family setting where if it's a traditional religious background, that's not something that's really, discussed or understood. And by the time my kids were, having these experiences, I was getting into it enough that, especially with my daughter, that I was able to understand exactly what she was seeing and then talk to her about that and say, oh, that's okay. Everybody has colors around their body. And it's a good thing to see it because sometimes you can see by the color that they are, how they might be feeling that day. So I talked to her a little bit about that. And then, when she was having, experiences with, people coming to her, because they were needing help and she could help them. And that's kind of what her specialty was going to be, that she could help them cross over. And so when they were coming, and talking to her, I would explain to her, well, that's because they just need a little bit of help. They might not know where they're supposed to be. And you can tell them that they need to go to the light and that kind of thing. So those are just the simple things. There's also a children's book, and unfortunately I can't get it out of my head, but it's pull it out of my head, I should say, but it's a very, very good book that you can use to teach children all about the metaphysical and energetic realms. And it's based at their level, at their educational level. So yeah, and I use that book a lot. Got that out and showed them and read to them and answered questions. So yeah.
So kind of segueing over to the work that you do now, can you share a couple of the issues for your own health that really motivated you forward? I know that there are a lot of people that have all their varying things they're going through. And so, an example or two might give them hope or inspiration to, here's some solutions. Take us a little bit on that journey.
Yeah. Well, my journey really started with my third pregnancy, and that was my daughter. And my first two pregnancies were very high risk. I was having early labor, and I was lucky to get them to, about the 8-month mark before I delivered. And I was in and out of the hospital and on all kinds of medications and things. And there was really nothing that the doctors could pinpoint as to why I was doing that. So by the time I had my daughter, we had checked everything out. There was no physical reason for this to happen. So when I got pregnant and it all started up again, earlier in the pregnancy, I was so sick with morning sickness, and I had read an article in a nursing magazine that acupuncture could help with chemotherapy, nausea, and side effects of chemotherapy. And so I thought, oh, that might help with morning sickness. So I found an acupuncturist here in town, and they agreed to see me and talk to me about it. And then they hooked me up to the midwife that I eventually followed my care in. And she opened up my whole world about, all the different things about herbs and nutrition and, flower essences and relaxation and all of those impacts that what my emotions were doing to the baby and, all of this stuff. So in the end, when we did end up using acupuncture during the pregnancy, it stopped my early labor, and I was able to carry her to full term birth. And then they helped me a little bit afterwards too with any postpartum depression or things like that, because that's common. A lot of women end up with postpartum depression. So and the acupuncture helps with that. And then I also had after my second child, I began to have problems with my thyroid. And so for years and years and years, I just was dealing with this thyroid issue where they were trying to keep it adjusted and regulated. And most people can understand where if you're on a long-term medication and things have to be regulated, especially the endocrine system, it can be very difficult, because the thyroid is part of the endocrine system, the liver, the pancreas, the spleen, the diabetes. That's another big one that people have problems with and keeping things regulated. And so when I really wasn't getting the answers that I thought, and I had to really start doing my own research on, okay, what is this? And is there something I could do with my nutrition, with my lifestyle, with supplements? And then also with acupuncture. Acupuncture can balance the endocrine system also. So that's where I kind of started to get away from Western medicine and caring for my chronic issue with my thyroid. And so that's where I went with that. And, a lot of people have a lot of chronic issues that acupuncture can help with. And then also, just the fact that there are ways for them to be able to manage their condition, that they don't always have to see the doctor. Sometimes you have to have medications, you have to have blood draws, you have, But there's a lot that they can do personally on their own through nutrition and exercise and stress reduction, energy work. So, yeah.
Yeah, so have you found, Christine, obviously when people come to you, they're already kind of in that mode of solution because they're trying to improve, they're trying to change. Have you seen kind of a general common theme of the mindset that people who are coming as patients to have a treatment, and I know you do a lot of different things, is there a commonality there? I know one time I read an article that says diabetes linked to depression. In other words, they're starting to look at the mindsets and how it impacts the physical bodies and so on. Have you noticed things in your work that umbrella stuff?
Yeah, most people, when they do decide to seek acupuncture, they've already been to doctors over and over, trying to figure out how to take care of it. You know, one of the top reasons people come to see me would be for pain, back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, migraines, younger women in their 20s, sometimes for hormone balancing and menstrual problems, things like that. So they've tried everything that they know how. They kind of follow in the Western paradigm. They're not getting any results, or not the results that they're looking for. And so when they do come, that's why they end up coming to me, because it's like, well, I'm going to try this and hopefully this will help, because they've heard somewhere that it did help, or they read something that said it helped. And so that's a common theme on patients that do come to see me. I also notice a common theme of when they are coming to see me, it really is that there's a new normal in their life. They're trying to learn to deal with a new normal. And it could be because they have a diagnosis that they know they're going to have to deal with the rest of their life, or a diagnosis that's not going to get any better and it will chronically get worse as they get older. Or it's something that has completely changed their ability to live their life the way they had been living it. Whether it's through an injury, or again, the diagnosis of a chronic disease or an acute disease that has impacted them. And you know, for a while they have to shift and learn how to live their life in a new way. So I call it their new normal. So to me, it's like they're in a huge transitional or transformational phase when they show up. So, and when they're in that space, I'm able to treat the physical, but I also treat the emotional and the spiritual. So I'm helping them to accept and move into that situation or that state in their life that they need to integrate, I guess, or learn how to bring peace and acceptance.
Sure. Well, what's an example of the spiritual direction you give somebody? So they've got the retreatment, but now there's also the spiritual side of it. What's an example of a direction you might help somebody with that way?
Well, when I do talk to them, because when I do my assessments, I do talk to them a lot about what their physical symptoms represent. You know, so if somebody's coming to me with low back pain, chronic low back pain, then there is an issue of the feeling of not being supported. Our low back is all about being supported, and it's having people have our back. Well, feeling that you've got somebody that's got your back when you need that support. Having issues with money, you know, like they're having financial difficulties, or they feel like they're struggling financially. So there's this overwhelming aspect of low back pain, unless it's just an acute injury. But if it's something chronic, it really is about them feeling like they're not supported. And on a spiritual level, it's feeling that they're, you know, spiritually that they don't have that connection and that support from the spiritual realm. And so I do talk to them about that. And it's the same thing with neck issues and with shoulders. You're shouldering too much, you know, responsibility with neck. You're not being able to turn and see your options. And so when you're looking at that from a spiritual perspective, it always starts in the spiritual realm, works down into the emotional and the physical. By the time it hits the physical body, it's an issue that they haven't dealt with on a spiritual level. So, yeah, so I do address that with them.
Yeah, and so so they're done with the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
You talked to them about that. What suggestions do you have for them when they go home to work on between the treatments? Because that's one of my things. It's great to get a reading, it's great to get a healing, but what do you do between the appointments that maintains it and even elevates it, rather than it's a, oh, I got the fix, I go home, now I'm back down here again, I go get, see what I'm saying? How do you advise people on the maintenance side of it to be on their own?
Well, I can offer recommendations of, nutritional changes,
Okay.
Some things can be helped a lot with nutritional changes. I do recommend on the occasions certain supplements that could be helpful. I work with essential oils a lot, so I will talk to them about, working with an essential oil, either using it or smelling it throughout the day, because that does change the proteins in the brain. When you inhale that, it goes straight to the olfactory nerve and then goes into the brain right away, the reptilian brain, and it changes the proteins in the brain. So that's a real quick thing to help with that. And then I also talk about a little bit about lifestyle. I'll sometimes recommend, a good massage therapist, Reiki. There's a lot of different places here in town that offer lots of different services, float tanks, things like that. And I do talk to them about how to manage the stress and how to get that to come down a bit, because as soon as you lower the stress, you lower cortisol, you lower the inflammation, and the physical stuff will eventually feel better because of that. And then once the body calms down and the brain calms down, then they're able to make that connection of, going, oh, so this is, what's going on. And and then I will recommend, if you could meditate, if you could journal, there's lots of different things that you can do. It's very individual per person. And some people come into me and they're already doing all of that stuff. So I'm just kind of getting them back online and centered, and then, giving them just some fine-tuned tips, that's all. So, yeah. And then sometimes with certain clients after the session, I've got 2 decks of cards, and one is all essential oils. And so I'll have them draw a couple cards and then work with the essential oil on that card or the phrase on that card before I see them the next time. And then the other one is, it's a healing deck. And when they draw one card from that, it could be something like, this card represents sleep. This card represents, so it'll give just a one phrase. It's like an oracle card. And then the book, describes everything that they do, like meditate, or it's a beautiful deck of cards. So that's another one that I have them draw for them to work with that in the coming weeks, because clearly you chose that card. So your guidance is giving you the information that you need to get more rest, or you need to be better with your nutrition, and it's not even me telling them, even though I may have said so, but then when they get cards that they've drawn, that were things we talked about in the treatment before we even drew the cards, and then they say, oh, wow. And usually the oil cards will overlap with the other healing card. So we take pictures of them, and then they can work with them at home. And if I have the oils in the office, I'll put those on a cotton ball for them to take home and smell for the week, or I'll say, well, if I don't have the oil, then you can get the oil here, and then you can work with that at home. Or if it's a food, that they can get, get through food, like if they get ginger, I'll say, well, eat something with ginger this week, so, and think about
Beautiful.
Yeah. So those are things that I do with them. Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, Christine, I love to, I may have asked this to you earlier, but I love to ask this 2-part question. And being where you are today, knowing what you know, the wisdom that you have, the experience that you have from all those different, being a mom, caregiver, all that, what would you say to your younger self of all those years ago?
You're going to have an interesting life. And you're going to do things that you know nothing about right now. And you're going to really love it. It's going to be a great adventure.
Then the second part of that is, what do you think your younger self would say about the Christine that she's observing of today?
Like I've said before, wow, that's amazing.
You did it, girl.
You did it. Yeah, you did do something completely different. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, tell us how we can get in touch with you, Christine. How can people reach out to you?
Okay. Well, you can always call me, and my number is 615-202-0166. I also have a website, healingsoultransformations.com. I have an office at the Unity Center here in Des Moines, down on 31st and Grand. I do have office availability in Pleasant Hill also. So I've got different locations, and basically I generally tell people to give me a call. You can get on and check out my website, take a look at the things that I offer. Because it's not just straight acupuncture. I do combine essential oils and sound therapy and all that. So it's a lot to look at and learn about. So.
Do you also do some online consultation for people that want to connect with you remotely?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I do remote work. So I can actually, I can do what I do in person, and what I do in person, I can also do remotely. So I can treat anybody. I actually have clients in Portugal and New York and Seattle, and yeah, so and every time I do it, I'm amazed at how well it works, because I've got that Western nurse side that goes, I don't know, is this really, and then this other side of it, it goes, no, everything is energy. And, in basic science, everything is energy. So, yeah. So it's just amazing how this can help
Beautiful.
people.
Beautiful. Well, there you go. Empowered Soul Network, another amazing empowered soul right in your midst. Feel free to reach out to Christine to connect, and I'm sure she's willing to chat and see how she might be able to be of assistance or just share her experience. Nothing like the experience coming from a mom of 3 kids. That speaks volumes just right
Actually,
there.
have
So
4 kids.
4, well, there we go.
4, yeah.
There we go. There we go. That's awesome. So, Christina, thank you so much for sharing. Stick around for just a minute, and make sure that you, at the end of the live broadcast, that you're going to put all that information in the comments there. We can tag people and let them know that you're here. I'm sure there are already people that have been watching that are already reacting and responding to things. So, all right, Empowered Soul Network, got another one coming up later today. So, a wonderful Friday afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, a great Labor Day weekend, and we'll chat soon. Thank you, Christine.
All right.